preamble on sort of how it was created. If anybody here has gone through the process of developing an outreach survey, you can probably empathize with us that it's extremely difficult to capture everything that you think everybody will want to talk about. And so what we did, and as Howard mentioned, we've had an enormous amount of outreach leading up to creating the survey. Lots of meetings, lots of stakeholder input, lots of community input. What we really tried to do was boil all of that down into the concerns, the aspirations that we've heard about the district, and put that in the survey. And you're going to see as we go through this, and we'll be the first to admit it, we missed a pretty big one when we put the survey together, and that's why we tried to, on every question that we could, have an other box so that you could tell us, hey, these are great, but you missed this. And you did, so thank you. But you're going to see that as we go through that there are a few that you told us that, I don't know that they surprised us, but we definitely missed it. So let's dive in, and we'll try not to bore you for too long on this. It's pretty data heavy. We'll try to go through it and hit the highlights as best as we can. As Howard mentioned, we had a really a great diversity of respondents to the survey. And actually, I will admit, being in this category surprised me that our from an age standpoint, the 20 to 34-year-olds were almost at the same exact level of response as our mostly retired population. And actually, up until about 3 days ago, we're in the lead. And then the 65 and olders made a surge at the end and took the gold. So congratulations, you won. You take the prize home. But all seriousness, it was a very balanced group, which is critical to these processes. And as we would have expected, I'm all over the place with this dot, but as we would have expected, we also asked where people live that are taking the survey, and most of them do live in the Rosemary district, if not in the district, in the city, if not in the city, in the county. And then in the other category, we had people from Bradenton, Longboat Key, Lakewood Ranch, a couple out of state, one out of country. So we definitely can't be accused of not reaching out.
Was there, can we ask questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there an age correlation, or what was the correlation in age to the folks living in the Rosemary district?
We don't know, to be honest. We haven't looked at that in that fine of a grain. We have looked at some of the trends, and one thing that was interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we go along, age really didn't show up in the trends and how these questions were answered. Pretty even across the deck. It was pretty interesting. So, and before I dive too much into these next slides, I wanted to mention that the next several of these questions that we're showing results for will have the same question broken out onto 2 slides. And the reason we did that, and I'll just flash forward and back real quick, is because it just doesn't all fit on one slide. We're not trying to separate them into the top 7 and bottom 7 for any purpose other than we want you to be able to see it on the slide. And as I said, it's not my goal to try and read every one of these, but I'm going to try and hit the highlights. You're going to see a lot of themes as we go through this. One of them, right off the top, when we asked you, what are the district's greatest strengths today? This is 2017. Right off the top, proximity to downtown, proximity to Bayfront were in the top 5. Which leads to another aspect, and you'll see this also developing into a theme, which is connectivity. Obviously, you can't take advantage of that proximity without connectivity to those strengths. Future potential of the neighborhood. We agree. We think there's a lot of potential in the neighborhood, so we're glad you think that way too. But obviously, the flip side of that is there's a lot to accomplish. Walkability. This one was really interesting to us. And not because we disagree in any way, but because the perception of walkability completely aligns with the data that shows you really do have a pretty walkable district today. And a lot of that comes down to the size of the blocks. The grid size in the district right now is pretty much ideal, what you would want it to be to establish a walkable community. As we go along, you're going to see that just because it's walkable today doesn't mean it's not important for you to improve on it. You're going to tell us that as well. Diversity is a theme that you're going to see throughout. And another thing, I keep adding these preambles in. don't think that we're trying to represent that if something is at a lower percentage, it's insignificant, because that's certainly not the case. Everything that we put in the survey was something that you told us before we even crafted the survey, these are the significant issues. So this is how they fall in relative order from top to bottom in percentage of how you pick them, but these are all significant issues. And then general character or feel, this one gets said in a lot of different ways, and you'll see that as we go through, but everybody describes this with a different word, and you'll see things like urban and edgy, creative and vibrant and authentic, and you're going to see that a lot, and we found that it's very important to you. Restaurants rounds out the top 7. Obviously everybody loves their restaurants. Ongoing and planned development projects was listed as one of your greatest strengths, and 25% of you agreed with that. And then as Ian mentioned before, and as you'll see in some of the following slides, there's a rich and diverse cultural history in this district that was certainly important to the respondents of this survey. And I just wanted to say, just so that you remember, I'm sure a lot of you took the survey, in these questions we asked you to pick 5. So again, we're not trying to say that these things toward the bottom are not important. They just weren't picked as part of the top 5 as many times. And then the other category, you'll see on every one of these, and actually I want to talk about probably the biggest thing that we missed in the questions and the answer choices that we gave, and that was affordable housing. So we didn't hear it as much leading up to creating the survey, but we certainly heard it a lot in the survey. So in almost every one of the other opportunities to write in your own response, we heard affordable housing as one of the top other choices. And the flip side of strengths for the district is challenges. We asked you, what are the greatest challenges? You told us the large homeless population is a great challenge. Redevelopment without a vision, which of course we're here trying to provide some of that vision, so I think we agreed with you. Almost 60% of people in the second most popular answer choice was that one. I was hoping for 100% to validate why I'm up here, but I'll take what I can get. Lack of parks and open space, certainly. There's none in the district today, so it doesn't surprise us that that would be one of the top vote getters. And there's a theme of sort of clean and safe as you go through also that has developed, and they tie together in a lot of different words, but you'll see that as we go through. This lack of clear neighborhood identity is an interesting one, because everybody seems to be able to pretty quickly describe how the district feels, but everybody kept asking us, well, what really is the district? Where does it start? Where does it end? I don't know when I'm in it and when I'm not in it. Is it a part of Gillespie Park? Is it a part of downtown? And so while everybody seems to be able to describe what they think about the district, they don't necessarily know where it is exactly. Lack of parking. This one showed up several times more in the other responses. If I had to guess, in 5 years, if we took the survey again, that one would probably be here. There's a lot of development coming and not a lot of additional parking. Missing basic services and businesses. We've got another question that sort of talks about that one specifically, and we'll get into which businesses that you told us that we're missing. But as a general theme, and this came directly out of the analysis that we did leading up to this, so this validates a lot of what we thought, which is you are missing several of the key ingredients to what we would call a live, work, play community. And then barriers to connectivity being a great challenge certainly goes right along with barriers to downtown. Interestingly though, not a lot of respondents felt like it was a concern or a challenge, barriers to neighborhoods. And I think part of that could be that it's just not quite as hard to go across Orange. Part of it might also be that most of the people who are taking this are thinking more about going from the district to amenities and not necessarily from the district to other residential areas. Interesting. We don't know exactly what it means, but it's an interesting tidbit. And in the other category, again, affordable housing was most of that 6.7%. We gave you a bunch of words, and we said, describe the Rosemary District today. And resoundingly has potential was the top, which again, completely agree, absolutely. And then a lot of these get to what we were talking about earlier with look and feel, the urban, the edgy, the creative, the diverse, all these things that make up the Rosemary District, and everybody says in a different way. The clean and safe sort of coming out, and then inconsistent character. We heard that a lot leading up to this, and it goes hand in hand with the consistent identity, the lack of neighborhood identity. So certainly that would be part of our efforts moving forward. So last one there was messy, so that goes to clean, and then unsafe, safe obviously. Isolated, getting toward the connectivity side of it. Authentic, distinctive, young, vibrant, all those other descriptor words. And then on this one, the biggest other vote getter was actually unplanned. So we're working on it. And then describe, so that was today. How do you see the neighborhood today? And then this one was, what is your vision for the future? What do you want it to be in a word? Walkable. So even though one of the top vote getters for what one of your greatest strengths is today is walkable, it's no less important moving forward. You want a walkable district. And that does go hand in hand with connected. You know, we're tilting at different sides of the target on that. Walkable is more internal. How do you get from A to B within the district? Connectivity is really getting more at how do you get from the district to the amenities outside of it? How do you connect the district to other areas? But a lot of the same solutions apply to both. Clean and safe. Creative. Number 2, creative. And that one's really goes along with, you know, if you think about sort of a theme of Sarasota in general, but also a lot of what's currently in the district. Really, there's, you know, portions of the district that are dubbed the creative district, right? And so not a surprise at all, and certainly something that we heard in different ways, not just in the Pig Fives, but also in the write-in responses throughout the survey. Urban, connected, vibrant, distinctive, more of those descriptor words. Clean, edgy, diverse. I was a little surprised, I think we were all surprised that this one was as low as it was. Not that 27.5% isn't significant, it certainly is. But given that there is no open space, and green isn't synonymous with open space, but it's certainly part of it. But we'll see that said in a few different ways as we go through. And then authentic, it was said to us over and over again that the district is different. It's different than downtown, it's different than other areas in the city, and we like that about it. And you said that again to us in the survey. And then on this one, the other, it was pretty split among the other. We heard historic, we heard young, we heard affordable, and one person wrote in that their vision is best in Sarasota. So awesome. Good job. We wanted to get a little bit more specific on this question and ask specifically about how it's growing right now and get feedback. And I'll be honest, this one surprised me a little bit, that the biggest feedback was it's growing at just the right speed. And if you were to take those two answers, or excuse me, the just the right speed, and add it with the people who responded and said it's growing too slow, made up almost 70% of the respondents, which was interesting to me. And we'll see a different angle of this in a little bit. But if you compare that also with, we wanted to know specifically about the new development in the district, what are your thoughts? Just 3 options, too big, too small, or just right. The majority was just right. And tailing back about 10% was too big. And so about 60% of people felt like it was either just right or too small. And so we had a little bit of a split response on this, dealing with the new development. And what we saw as we looked at different aspects of it is it seemed to come in a little bit less about how big or how fast the new development was coming in, and more, does it meet the general character that we all envision for the neighborhood? Is it promoting that urban, edgy, young, diverse, vibrant, creative, Are those descriptor words fitting? So then we dug into, well, if we're missing some of the basic businesses and services in the district, which ones do you think we're missing? And we looked at this in pretty good detail in the baseline analysis that we presented last time. But we wanted to ask you. I mean, you live in the district. A lot of you live in the district. What do you want that's not there? And this one was extremely balanced, which, again, it really supported our analysis that there's a diverse range of services that are missing in the district. To have a really good live, work, play, or call it a convenient district to live in, there's a lot missing. You've got a lot of retail in the district, but you don't have a lot of diversity in your retail in the district. You've got a lot of home goods stores, a lot of home design stores, not a whole lot outside of that. You've got a lot of restaurants, but everybody wants more restaurants. I don't think you can have enough restaurants. So that's your second vote getter. And grocery stores, you don't have one in the district. You've got a couple that are close by, but you have to cross some pretty significant barriers to get there. Entertainment venues. Again, you've got some uses that have some amount of entertainment that are a part of their program, but you don't really have any dedicated entertainment venues. And the list starts to taper off from there. Other was not at the bottom on this one, which it normally is, but in the other category, we had a couple of notables. Open space, which doesn't really apply to this question, but that's okay, we'll listen to you. Art galleries, coffee shops. One person just said ice cream. They want more ice cream in the district, which I can certainly relate to. We actually had somebody say that we needed more adult entertainment in the district. I'm not sure we're going to be able to put that in the final recommendations. I think the technical term for that might be an outlier response. Was that you, Lee? Just curious. And then what do you need less of in the district? Top vote getter on that one was social services. There's a sentiment that it's a large footprint in the district. And then this one was really interesting that it tapers off really drastically and not a lot of votes for a lot of the items that we put on here. So we either really missed the mark on this question and didn't ask you the right items, or maybe you just had a lot on your mind and wanted to tell us, because 30% of you gave us other. So in that other, a lot of it was more of the clean and safe aspect. The homeless population was brought up again, some of the social services were brought up again, and then somebody said, or several people actually said architects, which I like you architects. I actually enjoy having you in the district. I don't think we can kick the architects out. I'm not sure why everybody hates architects.
It's just one person.
Or three. Maybe one person took the survey 3 times. And then specifically related to public amenities, what does the district need? No surprise at all. And these obviously these overlap quite a bit. Public art can be in an open space. Street trees and landscaping can be in an open space, etc. These really get to those things that are outside of the private development box of a site that everybody can use all the time. What are you missing? And this is what you told us. Very, very balanced. One of the most balanced results. And in the other category, on this one, we heard parking, which we probably should have had as one of the bullet points on this. It'd be interesting to see where it would have came in had it been on the list. But you told us parking, and I don't know that affordable housing is a public amenity, but you told us affordable housing again. And then, because we wanted to capture in as many ways as possible your responses, we also put questions in here that were, write us a couple sentences. We prompted you with a question and told us, in your own words, write us a couple of sentences on what you think. This would be, if you had an hour, and Howard actually invented this question, which was pretty cool. Hadn't used this one before. If you had 1 hour to take a visitor around the district, where would you go? And because I can't read to you over 200 sentences, or you'd throw tomatoes at me and walk out, what we did is we use a program that takes all of those responses and looks through all single word and phrase answers and compiles it into what we call a word cloud. The largest words are the ones that showed up the most. So where would you take a visitor? Kudos to the restaurants, because everybody wants to go to the restaurants. We saw the Bayfront. So again, you recognize it as one of your greatest strengths. You would want to take a visitor there. That makes sense. We just need to connect you to it. And a couple of things that didn't make the list. One person said, visitors are here for the beach. And okay, I mean, it's hard to compete with just a beach, but if you change your mind, we'd love to have you. We also asked in a couple sentences to describe your vision for the future of the Rosemary District. And again, these themes are just supporting everything from the pick 5 answers. Not really seeing any outliers. Everything is very much supporting what we've heard leading up to the survey and in the other answer choices within the survey. We asked another one, we asked to describe your concerns for the district. And again, it was very similar, the clean and safe. Affordable housing showed up several times, didn't quite make the list. Safety, trees, gentrification, condos, green space being a big one. I won't read them all out to you, you can see them. And then moving forward, having just done almost the entire survey, moving forward, what should be the top priorities in the district? And this is where we started to, and by the way, Howard and I read through every response multiple times. And what really set in with me when looking at how the surveys compared against the new development, this is where it started to make sense. It wasn't so much the size or the speed as the character of the development. People really wanted to see quality development in the district. Development that supports the goals that were described elsewhere in the survey and what you've told us so far leading up to this point. Affordable housing, safety, green space. Again, these are common themes throughout the entire survey. And then if you were at the last meeting, we gave a presentation and then we broke up and we did some written survey responses, which obviously this came from those and many others. And then we also had a mapping exercise. And it's really hard to show the results of the mapping exercise in this type of a format. So we tried to describe what were the common themes of the mapping exercise. And very much they supported the survey, they supported what we've been hearing. Concern about large social services presence, the barriers to connectivity being an enormous weakness, mixed opinions about recent development, which I think come a little bit more clear when you read the actual descriptions of what people think. Strong desire for open space, restaurants being a huge strength. And of course, the mapping exercises, we just asked you to place dots on the map. So we asked you to show us where do you want more or less of residential, commercial, open space, and then show us where the greatest strengths and weaknesses are in the district. So we can't really go too much, we can't assume too much about the thought process behind that dot, except where it is on the map. And so that's why this bullet list is a little shorter than the survey results bullet list.
Sean, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So the previous slide talked about quality development. And then this slide talks about mixed opinions about recent development.
Sure.
Not very quantifiable.
It's tough, yeah.
So who judges that? How do you judge it?
Well, we work with you, first and foremost. We read at the fine-grained detail that you've given us. And when I say mixed results, I should probably explain that a little bit. So some people want faster development. Some people want slower development. But overall, when we saw the actual written responses to that question, overwhelmingly it was character of development. We want high-quality development that looks like it fits in the district that's young, urban, edgy, creative, artsy, urban, all those descriptors. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think it's an incredibly tough question to
It
answer.
is.
And I think that what's beauty? What's quality?
Sure.
So great answer, but I think it's really the devil's in the definition of that.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll take our best stab as we move forward, and we'll be back in front of you. And then just in summary, a lot of the themes that we kept seeing, the greatest strengths, or rather the participation right off the bat, extremely wide. Great in terms of quantity of responses and great in terms of the participation from different areas of the community. Greatest strengths today, proximity to downtown and Bayfront. The future potential, everybody's seeing this as just kind of hitting its stride, a lot more to do. And walkability. And then most significant challenges being perception about the homeless population, no vision or plan for the future, which was brought up over and over, certainly why Howard and others have started this process. Lack of parks and open space, and barriers to those strengths that you've listed. You described it as having potential, you described it as all these different words that mean different things to different people, but all make the district different than other areas in the city. And you described it as walkable, but you also said, don't give up on making that better. We want it to be even more walkable. We want it to continue to advance. And we want it to be consistent in character, but encapsulate these things: creative, vibrant, distinctive, and then safe and connected, definitely being themes throughout. We were told that the pace of development is generally acceptable. We were told that the size of development is generally acceptable. We need more stores. We don't have a grocery store. We need specific neighborhood services and a range of different retail options. And we don't have any entertainment venues. We have a large presence of social service agencies. And specifically on the public amenity side, we want more parks, open space, trees, landscaping, bicycle and pedestrian, going to the connectivity side of it, internally and externally, and public art. So with that, unless anyone has specific questions about the survey, I'm going to turn it over to Howard to go through what this and the analysis has really boiled into, which is the draft of the vision statement and the guiding principles. Sure.
Will these slides, will this result be on the website?
Yes.
When you say several times through there, too many social service agencies, what exactly are you saying?
Well,
That we feel there's too many of them.
well, we're not saying.
No, but I mean the survey.
Sure. I mean, that's a good question. I think it was said in a lot of different ways, and I don't think anybody that responded necessarily all means the same thing, right? There's a lot there. It's a diverse respondent group, and so it's a diverse amount of responses. But I think there's a sentiment that there's a large social services presence in the district, and some people see it as a concern.
That cleared up, Frank?
No, that's
I didn't think so.
Well, one thing, I will make one comment. I give tours to all the area realtors about the Rosemary District all the time. And when I go through the streets and so forth, I drive by the Salvation Army, and I always thank that man right there.
Right.
Because, he's doing an incredible job. The reach out's amazing. The Q Life program is amazing, getting the homeless off the streets. I mean, I think we should be proud of a lot of that. And so it sort of surprises me when I see these comments coming up, we have too much social service. So that's just a question.
Yeah.
I mean, most people want more, but I guess maybe it depends on what you're looking at. But I'm very thankful for, especially Salvation Army and the work that they do.
Yeah, and the reason Sean